let's talk about Quentin Tarantino. He's often called the single most influential director of his generation. I mean, he's a filmmaker whose style is so unique, so instantly recognizable, that it's basically become its own genre. So how did a guy working in a video store become a true cinematic legend? Well, we're going to break down the making of this auteur.
You know that feeling, right? The snappy, pop culture-filled dialogue, that perfect song from the 70s you haven't heard in ages, and then that sudden, shocking burst of violence. His signature is just unmistakable. It's so distinct that the word Tarantino-esque is now officially part of our language.
But what are the actual ingredients in that Tarantino-esque recipe? How did a high school dropout who worked at a video store completely flip the script on independent film for an entire generation? That's exactly what we're here to unpack. Okay, so let's start by dissecting the style itself. What are those core components, those telltale signs that tell you you've just stepped into Tarantino's world?
This is basically his cinematic DNA. His films are famous for jumping around in time, these nonlinear stories that kind of make you a detective piecing it all together. And then there's the dialogue, these long, brilliant, and often hilarious conversations about, well, anything, from tipping waitresses to the name of a cheeseburger in Paris. And all of this is usually punctuated by some kind of hyper-stylized, shocking violence. He's always paying tribute to classic genres he loves, like spaghetti westerns or martial arts flicks, all set to these perfectly curated soundtracks. He even created his own fictional brands, like Red Apple cigarettes, which makes his universe feel weirdly real.
So how did this style even come to be? Well, Tarantino's journey to the director's chair was anything but traditional. He didn't go to some fancy film school. His film school was a video store. For most of the 1980s, his classroom was a store called Video Archives, where he just soaked up movie after movie. His first real shot at directing, a film called My Best Friend's Birthday, never actually got finished. But then, by 1992, he had this razor-sharp script about a heist that goes horribly wrong. Actor Harvey Keitel got behind it, and that year he unleashed Reservoir Dogs at the Sundance Film Festival. Just like that, a new, explosive voice in American cinema was born. And this quote right here, it just perfectly sums up his entire philosophy. His education wasn't academic. It was this immersive, obsessive love of cinema itself. He learned the rules of filmmaking by watching thousands and thousands of movies, which is probably what gave him the confidence to go out and break all of them. And that confidence, it was forged pretty early on. There's a story that really says a lot about his drive. Apparently, when he was a teenager, his mom made fun of his screenwriting dreams. So he vowed then and there that if he ever got rich, she wouldn't see a single penny. It's an anecdote that really points to this early iron-willed determination he had to prove everybody wrong.
And boy, did he prove them wrong. If Reservoir Dogs was the earthquake that shook up the indie film world, his next movie, Pulp Fiction, was the tsunami that just completely reshaped the entire landscape of 90s cinema.
You have to understand, before Pulp Fiction, an indie film making over $200 million at the box office was basically unheard of. This thing wasn't just a hit with critics, it was a massive commercial blockbuster. It proved, once and for all, that independent film could go toe-to-toe with the big studios.
And it wasn't just audiences that were hooked. Winning the super prestigious Palme d'Or at Cannes, that solidified its legendary status. Pulp Fiction became a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Its jumbled timeline, that pop culture dialogue, it's effortless cool. It would go on to influence countless movies and TV shows for decades to come. Now, after all that success in the 90s, Tarantino didn't just kick back and relax. Nope. He started expanding his canvas, playing around with different genres, and as it turned out, he was secretly building a connected universe for all his characters. He went on this amazing tour through all the genres that had shaped him. He gave us a 2-part martial arts epic with Kill Bill. He literally rewrote history in Inglourious Basterds, and he created what he called a Southern, his spin on the Western with Django Unchained. Each film was like a masterclass in a genre he adored, all twisted and remade in his own unique way. Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting. There's this whole meta layer to his work. For years, fans had this theory, and Tarantino finally confirmed it. His films don't all exist in the same reality. They actually take place in 2 separate but connected universes. So here's how it breaks down. First, you have the realer-than-real world. This is the grounded reality where characters from Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs actually live. And then you have the movie universe. These are the totally over-the-top films that those characters would go to the theater to see. So basically, the bride from Kill Bill is a character that Vincent Vega might go watch on the big screen. It's a pretty brilliant way to explain the different tones in his movies. Look, you can't have a conversation about Tarantino without digging into his lasting impact. And that includes both his incredible influence and the controversies that have pretty much followed him his entire career. One huge part of his legacy is his fierce loyalty to a core group of actors. He's kind of built this informal repertory company of collaborators who pop up again and again. You know, Samuel L. Jackson, Michael Madsen, and Uma Thurman, who he famously calls his muse. They don't just star in his movies, they help define the very fabric of his world.
And his circle goes way beyond his regulars. He attracts the biggest A-list stars in the world, like you see here with the cast of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It really just speaks to the power and appeal of his vision. Actors just want to be in a Tarantino film.
But his work has often been a lightning rod for criticism. One of the most famous critiques came from fellow director Spike Lee back in '97, who called him out for his frequent use of racial slurs, especially in films like Jackie Brown.
Now, Tarantino has consistently defended his artistic choices. His response has always been that, as a writer, he has the right to portray any character authentically. And he's argued that telling him he can't write certain dialogue because he's white is, in his own view, a form of racism. And the debates don't really stop there. He's been criticized over and over for how graphic his violence is. He's clashed with police unions for speaking out at protests, and he's had his share of very public feuds. It seems that for Quentin Tarantino, controversy and acclaim have always gone hand in hand. So this all leads to the million-dollar question, what's next? For years now, Tarantino has promised he's going to retire after he directs his 10th film. And since he counts Kill Bill as one movie, that means Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was his 9th. What's the reason? He wants to avoid what he sees happen to other great directors. They make a weak last film and it kind of tarnishes their whole legacy. And that leaves us with one fascinating final question. With just one film left in his self-imposed limit, how is one of modern cinema's most distinctive and controversial voices going to choose to say goodbye? What's the final chapter in the story of Quentin Tarantino going to be?